All right. Good evening. Welcome to the Summer Transition Workshop. My name is Devontae Jackson, and I will be covering the topic of determining unmet need and if borrowing is necessary. This is the third installment of our Summer Transition Workshop, and I am very excited to be presenting this information today. So let's get started. Okay, so let's get started with our objectives of what we will be covering today in this presentation. So we will be determining when borrowing is necessary by identifying unmet financial needs, comparing the differences between undergraduate and graduate student loans, understand the purpose, importance, and process of interest counseling, defining Master Promissory Note and explain its role in student loans and outline its types. Next is preparing for loan repayment, and lastly, understanding interest accrual, loan forgiveness programs, and the consequences of default and delinquency for student loans. So let's get right into it. So we're going to go over some key terms. So the first key term is unmet need, and the unmet need is essentially the difference between the cost of attendance and all financial aid offered to the student. So unmet need is the remaining cost to be covered, and we will kind of go over the formula here in a bit of how to calculate unmet need. Next key term is student aid index. And the student aid index is the output of a process FAFSA form. It is used to determine the student's financial aid eligibility. And so the student aid index can be a negative number, which the floor is negative 1,500, being the lowest possible SAI a student can receive. It is not intended to be the amount that you must pay for college. However, it is subtracted from the cost of attendance to establish financial need. Next key term is financial aid package. And the financial aid package is a collection of different types of aid from multiple different sources, which can include federal, state, and institutional. It is intended to help fill the gap between the ability to pay for school or SAI and the college cost or cost of attendance. And so the financial aid package is based on financial need, which can be the difference of the cost of attendance, the student's SAI or student aid index, and any other financial assistance. Okay, so let's hop into the example of how to calculate the unmet needs. So here we have a sample of what uh, a student can receive from the university. So today we have sample university. And so for this in particular, this kind of also outlines the cost of attendance, the award letter, financial aid award letter. It outlines the cost of attendance, which includes tuition, fees, as you can see here, housing, books and supplies, and personal and other miscellaneous things as well. And so below that is what this student is receiving in award amounts. And so as you can see, it describes the different types of grants and the different types of scholarships along with loans. And as you can see, it breaks down 2 semesters, the fall semester as well as the spring semester, with each of the amounts for the scholarship and the loans. And as you can see over in the following column, it gives the total of the two that the total sum for the entire year. And so students have a option to either accept or decline. And so here for this example, the cost of attendance for this student at this sample university is $55,000. And so this particular student's SAI is 0. And so next is we will factor in scholarships, grants, and loans. And so that amount is $34,100. And so basically we are taking this equation here. So we're taking 55,000 minus 0 And then we also are subtracting that 34,100. And so we're left over with $20,900 in the student's unmet need. So this is an example of how you would calculate and determine your unmet need. Next, all right, so we determine the unmet need. So what happens if if the student cannot afford the true costs of their school? So let's jump into let's see. So find more aid. You can submit an appeal if you think you uh, if you think that the amount that you're getting from the institution wasn't as ideal, or you think that based on your circumstance, you think you should be getting a little bit more money, you have a chance to actually appeal. And so you would do that process with your institution. Um, Another option for aid is to look for additional scholarships and loans. My Scholarship Central is a great platform to look for additional scholarships. You can look into private loans as well from banks. That may be an option for more aid to cover the unmet need. The next option is to reduce costs. So if you could, if at all possible, you might want to look into living at home to save a few dollars. Another option is to live off campus, shared housing also, if that's possible. Next, working a part-time job, possibly leaving your car at home. A car can definitely add more additional expenses. So you may want to look into maybe if you have a car, leaving it at home. Or lastly, take advantage of college credit options as well. And so next is changing your plan. So here's some options that you may want to look into if you exhausted all your resources and you are looking for an additional way to help pay for school. So consider a less expensive school. I know students may have that top two choices of universities or colleges they might want to attend, but let's just say it's not as affordable. So you definitely want to consider, if that's the case, definitely want to consider maybe attending a less expensive school that offers more aid so you can be able to afford it. Next is starting at community college and then transferring. So community colleges oftentimes are cheaper, the cheaper option in tuition. And then, taking advantage of that option, being able to relatively transfer the credits to another university that you're interested in. It's a little bit cheaper start, and you'll be able to complete the same credits that were required at the university. So that's an option as well. Lastly is using A plus. So A plus is definitely an option for students looking to go to the community college route. And so that may be an option if eligible. Okay, next, let's switch gears into student loans. All right, so let's get into the type of loans. So we have three types of loans that we're going to cover today. One is subsidized, unsubsidized, and the notorious Parent Plus loans. So let's get into the subsidized loan. Subsidized loan is the federal student loan for undergraduates with financial need. And so what makes the subsidized loan so special is the government is responsible for the accrued interest on the loan. And so they will cover that while you're in school, and they will cover while you're in school and while it is in forbearance as well, if that's an option for you. Next is unsubsidized. Unsubsidized is also a federal student loan for undergraduates, but also for graduates and professionals. So what makes the unsubsidized different from the subsidized is that in this case, borrowers would be responsible for all accrued interest. and we'll go a little bit over those rates a little bit later in the presentation. And so lastly, we have the PLUS loan. This is also a federal student loan taken out by graduate, professional students as well, or the parents of dependent undergraduate students. And so what makes the PLUS loan so special is that it is a parent only loan. And so and then the parents will be responsible for the loan and all accrued interest on this particular loan. So this loan is really like a last resort because the interest rates tend to be very high on this particular loan. So it's kind of like a last resort for students. All right, next, let's get into the differences in loan limits and interest rates. So let's go over the undergraduate loans. So the loan limits for the undergraduate loans start at 5,500 and can go up to 12,500. And so this is based on the dependency status and year in school. And so we also have for the subsidized a limit of 31,000 to 57,500 total, with a maximum of 23,000 in subsidized. And the interest rates for these loans is currently around 6.53% for the 24-25 academic year. And so the subsidized loans may have slightly lower rates, a little bit under 6%. All right, next, switching gears into the graduate loans. So the graduate loans, students can borrow up to $20,000 for the unsubsidized direct loans and up to $138,500 for high professional degree students. And so the interest rates for the unsubsidized loans can are right around 8% for the 24-25 year. And so for that plus loan, that parent plus loan, as I mentioned earlier, can be slightly higher in interest rates. And so currently for those plus loans, you're looking at about 9%, which is really high. So that is, like I said, kind of like a last resort for students possibly. So please keep that in mind. All right. So let's switch gears into loan interest counseling. All right, so understanding loan interest counseling. What is loan interest counseling? Loan interest counseling is a mandatory process for first-time federal student borrowers, and these are for direct subsidized, unsubsidized, and plus loans. And so loan interest counseling is not required for the parent plus loan. So what is the purpose? The purpose is to educate students on loan terms and agreements, conditions. Next is to inform students about their rights and responsibilities as borrowers. And lastly, to help students make informed financial decisions regarding their education. So these are all very, very important to consider as far as the purpose of the loan interest counseling. And so next, it promotes responsible borrowing and financial planning, help prevents default, or by insurance students are aware of repayment obligations. So default basically meaning that the student is unable to pay. And lastly, provides essential information to manage student loans effectively. All right, so we went over what is loan interest counseling, the purpose and its importance. So next, let's get into when and how to complete it. So you will need to complete the entrance counseling before receiving student loans. It is absolutely mandatory for first-time federal student borrowers. And it must be completed before the loan is dispersed to ensure that the student has the complete understanding of the terms, so there's no confusion, Um, yeah. So next is how to find the interest counseling. And the platforms that you can find that on is federal student aid. And so students, if you have created your FSA ID, um, navigate the federal student aid website and complete your interest counseling. And so there are online tutorials and guides on the FSA website and educational institutions that provide uh, financial aid portals and additional information of how to begin the process. All right, so let's take a look at the step-by-step guide to completion. So as I mentioned before, you will need to log into your FSA account using your FSA ID. Next, you will need to navigate to interest counseling section. Then you will follow the prompts to begin the counseling session. Then you would read through the information carefully and complete any quizzes or assessments. And so I have a couple of screenshots of how that will look on you guys' end. Next is reviewing your rights, responsibilities, and repayment options. And lastly, you would sign and submit. Okay, so let's get into how it would look when you are navigating. So let's just say you're logged in, your federal student aid account, and so you're about to complete your loan interest counseling requirement. So you would then select whether you're a graduate, undergraduate student, or graduate student. Then you would continue on into the counseling module. And as you can see, um, it gives quite a bit of information. It gives you the time it takes to complete it. It shows you what you will learn. And here are screenshots to the right of how it will look. Like I said, there are several modules you will have to complete. And then basically just gives you a thorough understanding of the loan itself and the different loan types and basically giving you as much information as possible to make this informed decision of carrying out this loan. Okay, so with that comes a master promissory note. And so the master promissory note is a legal document in which borrowers promise to repay their student loan and any accrued interest and fees um, to the U.S. Department of Education. And so again, this is required for the disbursement of loans. It establishes terms and conditions, ensuring borrowers are legally obligated to repay. So this actually served as a legal binding agreement. And so with this master promissory note, it is subject to other loans for other products that may also exclude educational purposes as well. All right, next is key considerations for student loans. Okay, so preparing for loan repayment. So the grace period for loan repayment is typically 6 months after graduation or leaving school or dropping below full-time enrollment in the institution. So this allows time to maybe find employment or create a plan of repayment for students. So definitely keep that in mind. Um, here are some repayment options. So you have your standard repayment plan, graduated repayment plan, income-driven repayment plan, and pay as you earn. So each of these repayment plans are a little bit different from one another. Um, So the standard repayment plan is basically a fixed monthly payments over 10 years. The graduated repayment plan starts low and increases every 2 years. So that's subject to definitely subject to how much you borrowed. And so that would be subjective. Um, Next is the income driven repayment plan or IBR. And so payments are based on your income and family size. And so this is open to more borrowers with typically older loans. And the pay as you earn repayment option is also based on income and family size and open to borrowers with those newer loans. All right, next is loan forgiveness and repayment assistance programs. So there are a different, I'm sorry, there are a list of different repayment assistance programs that help students while they are in repayment. And here are a few. So first we have the public service loan forgiveness. And so this is for full-time employment and qualifying for public service jobs that students make at least 120 qualifying payments. And so all of these, keep in mind, all of these are subject to changing in the future, but this is currently where it is now. So next we have the income-driven repayment forgiveness. And so there are a few different plans. There is the income-based repayment, the pay-as-you-earn. We also have the revised pay-as-you-earn. That's similar to the pay-as-you-earn, just a little bit different conditions. We also have the income contingent repayment. And so the remaining balance forgiven after 20 to 25 years of qualifying payments based on income and family size. So I went over a couple of those options in the previous slide. And next we have the teacher loan forgiveness. So any students that are teaching full-time for 5 complete and consecutive years in a low-income school or educational service agency. So these are definitely some great repayment and assistance programs to be aware of if you would need to borrow and be in repayment and are currently in repayment. All right. So let's get into the consequences of default and delinquency. So delinquency simply is the failure to make payment when it is due. That includes late fee, that will include late fees, damage to credit score, and the potential loss of borrower benefits. So these are all what can happen if students fail to pay their loans. These are definitely some consequences of not being able to pay loans. And so simply default is the failure to make payments for 270 days or about 9 months for federal student loans. And so when a student defaults, their entire loan balance is due immediately. So instead of having that grace period, that would definitely not be an option anymore. And so the student will be responsible for paying the entire loan. And so another consequence includes wage garnishments in which they can garnish income from money that you're making. Also includes tax refund seizure and loss of eligibility for further federal student aid. Lastly, severe damage to credit score and potential legal action. So it's some pretty serious consequences of going into default and delinquency. So by all means necessary, we do not want to see any student fall into default or delinquency. So these are definitely very, very important to be aware of. Okay, so let's recap. So we talked about entrance counseling. We talked about Master Promissory Note. We talked about loan types and considerations, important factors to consider. So to recap again, entrance counseling is the mandatory session for first-time federal student loan borrowers to understand loans and term responsibilities. And so that Master Promissory Note, or the MPN, is the legal bonding document in which a student agrees to repay the loan and interest that accrues with that loan. So the loan types, undergraduate loans, we went over graduate loans today. Undergraduate loans may have, well, they do have lower interest rates than graduate loans. And then the graduate loans, students can tend to borrow more. Next, important factors to consider: programs like the PSLF or the IDR can help borrowers manage their loans effectively. And defaulting on loans can result in severe consequences, as we covered, including damage to credit score and wage garnishments. Okay, so next we have upcoming summer transition workshops. And so today we covered determining unmet need and borrower necessity. And next on June 25th, please sign up. If you're interested, Dominisha will be going, our fellow student advisor, Dominisha Newton, will be going over how to create a graduation plan. And that will be at 5:30 on June 25th. And also have locating and accessing campus resources on June 27th at 5:30. And Liliana will be leading that one. So speaking of advisors, here are our advisors, our full team at the Scholarship Foundation. We have Grace, Liliana, Ricky, myself, Dominisha, and Teresa, who is our director. Okay, so now I'm going to open it up for questions. You have any questions? No questions? All right. So thank you all for joining today. Um, I really, um, I really enjoyed giving this presentation, and I hope you all learned a lot. If you all have any questions later on, feel free to email us, call us, or feel free to visit our site as well. So thank you all. I hope you enjoyed the content, and signing off now.